Chapter 2. Secession. On May 1, 1833, President Andrew Jackson wrote presciently, "The tariff was only a pretext, and disunion and Southern Confederacy the real object. The next pretext will be the negro or slavery question." The issue of states' rights versus federal powers dominates the next 2 decades. Ironically, in the years leading up to the Civil War, it is the Northerners who use the argument of states' rights to nullify the execution of the Fugitive Slave Act, while Southerners seek to expand the power of the federal government to protect and expand slavery. The roles reverse with the election of Abraham Lincoln. After decades of threatening to leave the Union, Southerners, led by South Carolina, act. December 3, 1860.
In his final message to Congress today, President Buchanan surprised many Southerners by stating that the framers never intended to implant in its bosom the seeds of its own destruction, nor were they guilty of the absurdity of providing for its own dissolution.
Carter. The Cincinnati Daily Commercial echoed the president's message with an editorial that equates secession with anarchy. Quote, "If any minority has the right to break up the government at pleasure because they have not had their way, there is an end of all government." End quote.
December 18, 1860.
With tensions escalating and rhetoric becoming increasingly belligerent, the House of Representatives and the Senate today voted down a proposal prepared by Kentucky Senator John J. Crittenden that would amend the Constitution to make slavery permanent in the slave states, prohibit interference of fugitive slave laws, and allow for the expansion of slavery to new Western states. Republicans refused to support the measure, apparently after learning of Mr. Lincoln's guidance.
"The tug has to come, and better now than any time hereafter. The proposal would lose us everything we gained by the election, and put us again on the high road to a slave empire. We have just carried an election on principles fairly stated to the people. Now we are told in advance the government shall be broken up unless we surrender to those we have beaten. If we surrender, it is the end of us."
The time for compromise has now passed. The South is determined to maintain her position and make all who oppose her smell Southern powder and feel Southern steel.
December 20th, 1860.
This is Danielle Burke reporting from Charleston, South Carolina, where a celebration is underway following a unanimous vote by the delegates to the Convention of the People of South Carolina to secede from the United States. 8 military companies paraded down Main Street under a shower of rockets and fireworks while the band played the Marseillaise. Governor Pickens was serenaded at the Mills House by a buoyant crowd. He promised to reopen the African slave trade, declare white men the ruling race, and punish summarily and severely, if not with death, any person caught espousing abolitionist views.
December 26th, 1860.
This is Jackie Chase from Washington, D.C. At precisely the noon hour today in Charleston Harbor, the Stars and Stripes was raised on a flagpole at Fort Sumter by the federal garrison that left Fort Moultrie under the dark of night under the leadership of Major Robert Anderson. Robert Anderson, born in Kentucky and raised in Virginia, is the son of a Revolutionary War soldier who actually defended the same fort more than 80 years ago. The major led his men from a certain defeat at Fort Moultrie to a much safer and stronger Fort Sumter, completely surprising the South Carolina militia that had Moultrie surrounded. The actions by Major Anderson and his men have engendered pride across the North.
January 11th, 1861.
A unified Southern Confederacy is almost a reality this evening. Today, Alabama followed Florida yesterday and Mississippi on the 9th to become the second, third, and fourth states to declare independence from the Union. Alabama's Ordinance of Secession was passed in Montgomery to the accompaniment of bells, cannon fire, and whoops from the large crowd gathered outside the convention hall.
January 19th, 1861.
Georgia joined its southern brethren today to become the fifth state to secede from the Union.
January 26th, 1861.
The Confederacy of the United States is quickly taking shape as word has just arrived in Washington that Louisiana voted to become the sixth state to secede.
February 1st, 1861.
Over the objections of Governor Sam Houston, who made clear his allegiance to the Union, the Texas legislature voted to secede. The result was never in question, as 70 votes were cast in favor of secession before a single nay was cast.
February 11th, 1861.
One day before his 52nd birthday, President-elect Abraham Lincoln boarded a train in Springfield, Illinois, to travel to Washington, D.C. today. Mr. Lincoln shook hands with well-wishers in the waiting room at the train station and then walked on to the rear platform of the passenger car. When he removed his hat, the rain trickled down his face, which quivered with emotion.
I now leave, not knowing when or whether ever I may return. For the task before me greater than that which rests upon Washington. Without the assistance of that divine being who ever attended him, I cannot succeed. With that assistance, I cannot fail. Trusting in him who can go with me and remain with you and be everywhere for good, let us confidently hope that all will yet be well. To his care commending you, as I hope, in your prayers, you will commend me. I bid you an affectionate farewell.
February 14th, 1861.
The Confederacy has its first leader this morning, following the election of Jefferson Davis as president by a unanimous vote at the National Convention in Montgomery yesterday.
I enter upon the duties of the office to which I have been chosen, with the hope that the beginning of our career as a confederacy may not be obstructed by hostile opposition to our enjoyment of the separate existence and independence which we have asserted, and with the blessings of Providence intend to maintain. Our present condition, achieved in a manner unprecedented in the history of nations, illustrates the American idea that government rests upon the consent of the governed, and that it is the right of the people to alter or abolish governments whenever they become destructive of the ends for which they were established. If a just perception of mutual interest shall permit us peaceably to pursue our separate political career, my most earnest desire will have been fulfilled. But if this be denied to us, and the integrity of our territory and jurisdiction be assailed, it will but remain for us, with firm resolve, to appeal to arms and invoke the blessings of Providence on a just cause.